Oh, we're getting the mic issues again. Sorry, everyone. We've had a few issues tonight behind the scenes. That's why we're a little bit late on this one.
I think you want to jump up to a... There's not space for 40 odd people, is there?
It's all right. We'll just get this one kicked off. Had a question on our YouTube. This is a regular weekly event every Sunday at about the same time. The duration depends. This week might be a little bit shorter. However, next week we do have a public holiday, so I'll be playing that one for longer. Unfortunately, though, our main caster, Praedyth, will be away next weekend. So we're not too sure how that one's going to be set up yet.
So
If we can force this one into action, and I'll try and get in touch with Praedyth. There we go. First one into gear. Once again, sorry for the late start. We're about 20 minutes behind schedule on this one. A few mic issues and overlay issues, but we think we've got them mostly fixed. Might just have a Praedyth on the quiet for a little bit. For those tuning in, this is King of the Hill by AllReasonNoLogic, where we throw a bunch of kings into the middle of a map. On one of them this game. The kings do have a bonus, 45% on this one. And then all the peasants rush at them at the 10-minute mark.
going to be a bit of a messy one up there, I reckon, or a bit of a messy one across the map, realistically. With quite a lot of people.
We've never tried 7 kings up the top. Are you in this one, Tom? Or are you speaking?
No, I didn't realize both you guys had jumped in until it was full. So I am in spec this game.
Yeah, we might get you to just talk over. Maybe not give us too many tips, Tom. We'll keep you in chat just to keep things entertaining while Praedyth fixes his mic. Unfortunately, when trying to modify all the OBS settings, the mic stopped being recognised. We do miss his darling voice, getting us through these streams every week. What does VC mean?
I'm guessing that means voice chat.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to stay in this one, Ollie. Just keep Tom company for now.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out where the rules for stuff are. I've got the Claymore King of the Hill rules, but I don't have the ones for Throne because it's been a while.
Been a very busy weekend this weekend. You can tell we're not quite as ready as we usually are for these ones. Okay, here are the King of the Hill throne rules. There, we got you back.
Hey, there we go. was a wild fix.
Good to see you in game, Prey. You never really get to play these ones.
I figured I'd jump in for the first one, get a little bit of the pressure out of the way, see if we can't get a nice win for the Kings to start this one off, and then move along. Twig, it looks like you're going to be my partner in crime, potentially. Oh, actually, no, it looks like you're with Ollie, and I'll be with Rosie. And then hopefully Evis will give us some good old stuff from the middle. We'll see how that one goes. I'm going to try to rush my way into some fusion and a nice strong breakout attack at the 10-minute mark. We'll see how I go.
What do you reckon the tactic would be here? We've got 3 more kings than usual, obviously a lot more peasants than usual. I reckon if myself, Rosie and Duxie go into spam to protect the entrances, you guys obviously protecting your hill going to heavy T2, and I reckon Evis into T3 would be the way to go. That's just my personal opinion. Why am I going Cortex? I should go Armada.
I love those ticks. We do need at least one Cortex, but I think this will be quite manageable.
Ah, you guys can't do that, can you?
Yes, for everyone playing, because I was having some mic issues at the beginning, I figured I'd jump into one, because it would be pretty pointless having me as the main caster unable to cast and specking, so you're getting one live from in the game. Let's see if we can have some fun with it. We've got little under 200 seconds before the game automatically starts, but there'll probably be a vote to force started at some point, or everyone will ready up one or the other. They're currently...
Looks like we've almost got everyone readied up at this stage.
Nice. Yep, Tank Tom, you are specking, aren't you? So
He's going to do his best not to give it away for us.
I would highly recommend casting it from the King's perspective if you're not in the game. That way we won't have to be accused of cheating. Please do continue to send me PMs on exactly what everyone's doing.
For those wondering, things like nukes, LRPCs, they're all turned off. Structures are not allowed to hit the base. We're constantly fighting with Junos. Junos just destroy it for the Kings. So we ask that no one shoot their Junos up into the King's base, but they can be shot into that second tier on this map. That's the no man's zone for the first 10 minutes.
Everyone's obeying the rules so far, which is nice.
And very rare, though. We have been doing this for quite a while now. So I think a lot of people that do come on for these are returning players, and the scene is swapped. And they've got everything running up and running. It just wasn't swapped while I was trying to deal with the audio issues.
Yeah, I can see it's on one but not the other.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that's just where they're at.
What do you reckon? Probably kick things off into about 5 constructors? Or do you have 3 on this one?
We're restricted to 3 metal each, so I'm probably going to go with 4 constructors. I'm going to go with a modified version of my build from Claymore, because I'm going to be on a similar sort of metal amount to Claymore.
It's Twigs that's got the scene that needs to be updated. That's what's good.
What? Are you sure about that?
It's the one that's looking at you.
Yeah, okay. I've done something wrong. Yeah, I have. I so have. That'll do.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.
That's the scene. Sorry, people. I changed all my scenes around this week. I'm just going to leave it on that scene for the rest of the night. There is a bot that will change it automatically for you, but God, it does not work very well.
So we've got rules largely being followed, a couple of bits that have been removed, people trying to expand into the middle, but it looks like we should be relatively well sorted now.
Nice.
Let me... I expect space is going to be a huge limiting factor this game.
Oh yeah.
That was an explosion near me.
Don't even
I
know
think that was-
where Kings are going to be able to self-detonate their commanders. We don't have any space to do it anymore.
Yeah, that was something on the ramps.
Ah.
It shouldn't have necessarily been there.
Very good, very good.
It's not a bad idea there. Nightmare, just putting up some mines at the entrance of each ramp so that people can't
That's actually a really good way of
them.
dealing with it. I like that.
That's smart. Very smart.
That's very smart. Very, very smart.
Ah.
I'm
Like
doing
OP,
that.
man.
Not enough. Definitely not enough metal for that.
Low power. An allied
Yeah, you guys are going to be struggling for metal up there,
Yes,
aren't you?
yes,
You're
we
going to be
are.
trying to split smaller amounts of metal across larger amounts of people.
Self-destructed.
How are you going? For a second there, I was like, that's a lot, but you were reclaiming things at the time.
Yes.
You're not running at 1,000 metal a second.
I wish I was running at 1,000 metal a second. That'd be great.
Mm.
If anyone wants to give me 1,000 metal a second, I'll take it.
No surprise to see that we've got some co-op economies going on around the edges. Everyone's playing nicer than I was expecting them to. And some of those T2 economies coming up online, which is at about the time we normally see them from both sides when they're working together like this.
Whoops. Chatting to everyone.
Have you guys noticed that if you chat to all, then to try and get it back to just your own team? I've never quite worked out how to do it.
I always stuff it up after that. I'm very much so into stuffing that up.
Hmm. Yeah. Res bots that just happen to clip that top ramp and go up for those couple of trees. How are you guys feeling up there at this stage?
Ah, look, I'm feeling
You're about
pretty
halfway
behind,
through.
honestly. I haven't played
It
from this
really
position in
makes-
a long time.
It really makes a difference only having 3 mechs rather than the usual
Yeah.
6, 7.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't quite have that economy to get that firepower really rolling in the way that economies scale and basically become exponential towards the end. You kind of have to hit those breakpoints before you can really get rolling properly.
Yeah.
Starting to see some of that stuff coming up, but it'll be interesting to see what happens when we hit the 10-minute mark.
Hmm.
Seeing some fairly standard stuff all around the outsides at the moment. A bunch of people have gone into the water, which isn't particularly surprising just with the space limitations. I don't expect that they're going to bring much force to bear. Often whenever we see someone in the water, they kind of just end up playing SimCity in the water for most of the game, rather than being able to turn that into units that get pushed forward and actually put that pressure on. Can't remember whether the flagships have enough range to be able to reach the middle or not.
They do not. They definitely
That's
do
what
not.
I seem to remember that everything from the water ends up being entirely useless.
Yeah.
Just because you can't hit the kings, and if it's not hitting the kings, then it's not doing anything.
Looks like we've just had some of our first fusions kick online. You can always tell when that energy starts overflowing.
Ding! I'm starting to get a few up on that top, which is what you'd like to see. We are definitely getting to that phase of the game where you want to start transitioning from your eco into getting those armies up and running.
Very much so.
Starting to see some defenses going up on the ramps themselves. Nothing that's particularly huge, but enough to just stop most of a T1 push as it comes down the ramps. Although I suspect that you guys might have an interesting start. It looks like some people have been listening to the Aggression Wins Games. I'm seeing some armies starting to mass.
That's not good.
The real question for you guys is whether it's going to hit you or whether it's coming for the other side.
It's definitely coming for us.
30 seconds left.
I am playing catch up.
Let's go.
Yep, everything's been cleared, and so it's game on.
Battle paused.
Yeah, I see that.
Oh, Cookie Destroyer getting destroyed by cookies.
No good. No good. Double fusion for him.
The economies are more even than I was kind of expecting them to be at this point.
That works
in
out
that-
at some point.
They're in that ballpark of where we normally see the balance of economies at this point, which is nice. But the pushes are on their way.
Ollie going to stupid amounts of eco. Actually having more eco than the eco player. Look how many ticks there are. Luckily, I have a massive defenses.
Yeah, you've now got enough to hold off most of them. I find ticks is one of those kind of rock, paper, scissors. Because if the counter's there, they're entirely useless. But if it's not, then you can push on in. And you don't need all of them to make it through, you just need some. Ah, don't stop and kill the defenses, keep running. They got some ticks past Twig's line, and then turned back to kill it. At that point, you just keep on going. Not a lot of other pressure coming out across the map at this stage. So I suspect this means that you guys are going to have the advantage going forwards.
I like the sound of that.
Just because with no one knocking at your door at this stage, I expect that you guys can probably continue to scale better, but I guess we'll see. The real question will be whether you guys can actually get out and deal some of that damage as well.
T2 unit detected.
Been quite a lot of economies built around the place. If you get down anywhere, you'll find something to pop.
Yes.
Would
Just
love to
trying
see some armies.
smartly punch those down instead of dumbly punch them down.
Yeah, when you've got the time to be able to take your time and work it out, rather than just rushing on blindly. You could have had a little bit of spam in front of your line to actually see what's going on over there. Oh no, that's Rosie.
Oh no, I did.
I'll
I
pick
did.
it up.
I know what's over there. That's why I'm using
That's what-
Mausers. I don't want to fight this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking it was your mouses that were at the front, but no, you're orange, not pink. Ah, that's cookies. Blowing things in that top corner. Smartly targeting the geo, knowing that there's going to be economy there, and it goes pop nicely. You don't necessarily need to know what's around it, you can just dumbfire at it. I hadn't realized that he'd managed to get to T3. Getting up a vanguard for sniping those geos definitely does some work. It saves having to punch down to them. Looks like you guys are starting to try and make some headway. Those static defenses doing work for Twig there. Holding off the couple of pushes that have made their way in.
Oh man, I'm not going next to Ollie again. He just keeps going eco.
I mean, I'm doing
Yeah,
a
the
bit
challenge.
of that.
Eco's great until you wish you had units to stop whatever arrives.
Commander destroyed.
It's that always that balancing act of making sure that you've got enough units to defend the eco that you've massed. And I found with these, if you can
Destroyed.
get that damage out with those units, you often end up in a better position than if you'd had the massive eco.
Oops.
Some good defensive work going on here, though. Other than losing the couple of geos, there hasn't been any massive kind of economy lost so far.
I'm managed to getting some headway down here.
Yeah, you'll make it in down there. There's not too much that's
Not meant
going
to
to
tell me
defend.
that.
Well, now that you're down and you can see,
I can see it.
you're looking at undefended wind farms, basically. There's not many. I'd love to see more units being made. We're seeing some skirmishing forces come out, but nothing
Enemy commander
that's
destroyed.
particularly gonna hold you guys back. Nice tremor up in that top left corner, raining
Yeah, that
down
was
on
great,
your
that's
stuff there,
great.
Prey. I like that. That's a good call. Having one position just so that it catches everything as it comes off the ramp is a nice idea. Those fiends covering all of the spam that makes it through, and having the long range to just chip away at any army that's sitting up there. Got a little bit coming out from the peasants, but nothing huge. I'm not really seeing where the pressure's going to come on for you guys. I'd love to say that, you know, you're sitting ducks and just wait till this thing rocks up, but at this stage, I'm not seeing where that's going to come from.
I can live with
It
that.
looks like there's a lot of eco that happened out of the peasants. I
Yeah,
didn't see
lots of
many
it.
units.
Other than this
At
bottom
all.
side, there wasn't many units produced. They're trying to make some, but it's not going to be enough to hold off what you've got flowing down. That left side's strong. I will give them that. But Twig's army in this, or between Twig and Ollie, they're largely clearing up down here. A little bit of a beachhead being made up on that second tier to the bottom left, but
Oh,
I expect
bugger,
that's
that
more a
2-2
matter of time.
mags.
That's a nice push coming up over the top of the wall there. Getting into prey stuff, but not doing
I've
huge
put a
amounts
bit of
damage.
defenses behind my base.
Yeah, I can see that there's just a few beamers and the pop-up turrets. So I expect with that push largely failing, you guys are basically going to have free reign to continue building up those economies and then rolling on round. Yeah, I think this was probably a case of a few too many people and that they didn't really have the options for many of them to really get rolling because they got so much economy built up. Or because there were so many people to build some economy. There's not a whole lot of space for much else either. You guys will... Oh no, you probably won't have to go into the water too much. I expect once we basically clear this land, we'll call it. Ooh, will they make it in? No, they won't, I don't think. Decent push coming in on this right-hand side here. But, I don't expect it's going to be able to hold off the push that's coming out of Cookies. Ray's busy trying to work out how to make his way.
I'm not that concerned on how to make my way in. It's if they're going to be spamming that there, then that's perfectly acceptable. I'm just going to do something else.
As long as they're over there, it's fine.
Yeah.
And you've got a reasonable amount of time once they start pushing before you have to actually stop it.
Yeah.
And with Rosie being there as well with the T2 units, it's going to be rough to make it up that ramp. Ollie's wrapping around from that bottom to the right hand side. Twig's coming down with all of his recluse.
Lotus City.
Yeah.
I'm going straight into the lunkheads. I'm going to take the risk.
Nice.
Not a very big risk.
Yeah, because I've just been looking at the map and seeing what's happening with Twig. I just know that I don't need to worry about my players as long as I don't lose to them.
Yeah, I do like to see those constructors heading out. Would love to have seen a T2 out there with them.
It was meant to be, but he's trapped, so there's another one coming.
That's fair. Cookies has got the Cargonets out and rolling. And he's very quickly going to end up with a mass of those that is going to be very rough to stop. Commanders will be able to do a bit of work, but there's only going to be so many of them between their start and finish points.
Yep.
And the problem is that with the commander, once you degun your scene, and then the other, what's that, 5 to 10 Cargonets that are in range, don't take long to wipe you out. at this point, pretty much all that bottom half has been fairly well cleared. So you guys are expanding out onto that second tier just so that you got some more space to work with.
That's what you gotta do.
Commander destroyed.
I just realised I have an absolute massive ticks over on this right hand side. Let's see what they can do. There is a commander. Let's just take out the commander.
Just responding to your comment there, Scruffy. The Kings do have a bonus.
Did not
On this
get him.
map, it's generally been about 50-50 with the bonus we've got. There's definitely more players on both sides for this round. But if the peasants can hold the Kings largely on that top tier, because the Kings don't have the extra space to keep on continually expanding, it's not uncommon that if the peasants can hold till that sort of 15-20 minute mark, then once they get the T3 then they can fight back. Or if you get a massive ticks in early, once you can get through the defenses, because there's so much economy, if you can take out some build power, you set the Kings back massively. Spiders has definitely been a theme for this game previously, and we've seen a few of those, but because these guys have been up there before and they came relatively late, all those defenses were up and running, ready to take on anything that did manage to make its way up there. When you've got the 10 or 20 recluse rock up at the 11-minute mark, that can be much more rough. But when it rocks up at the sort of 15 to 20, there's generally enough defenses and units that are up and running, ready to stop things.
Oh, looks like the peasants have seeded this one.
Nicely done to that top left, holding on.
Yeah, they've definitely been the strongest holdout out of the rest of the players, or out of the peasant side.
Why can't I see everything
Yeah,
now?
why can we see everything? We turned on. I thought that would happen because of surrenders.
I don't know.
I think it might just be to assist clearing up the map so we can get on to the next one.
Ah, I can live with that.
Nice.
Potentially. Yeah, that means that you guys can now see that there's a decent amount of stuff hidden away in those corners. Yeah, and that the flagship definitely can't get close enough to do anything of relevance. Essentially, I expect
Man,
it'll be
these lunkheads do work against Navy. They're not great for
Yeah.
T3, but they do what they're meant to do. That's
There
big
we go.
Navy.
That's the breakage
Or,
we needed on land.
yeah, for getting out and hitting the economy.
Oh wow, I've got 56 recluse sitting there doing nothing I forgot about.
You don't really have much left to clear up on the land at this point.
Just a little
A couple
bit
of holdouts
those
over on that left-hand
corners.
side, but
Commander destroyed.
it's largely just clearing out the navy at this point.
Destroyed.
Merzin is doing quite good to defend against me on this left-hand side here. Why don't we pay him a visit, Praedyth?
I think. Wait, where?
That was down here.
Oh yeah, just down there. I think we can do that.
With those sneaky spiders that we've both
Sneaky,
got.
sneaky spiders coming over the wall. And let's
Oh,
get
we got
into the
Fish House Mike.
lunkheads.
One of our favourite regulars.
Yeah, you've had Mike and Asgareth up in that top left corner, which was why it was as difficult to crack as it is.
I could micro, but I'm not going to.
I mean, at that point, you're basically just throwing units at the problem and it'll solve itself sooner or later.
Yep.
Oh, I'm getting game errors. I can't even change my build order.
Yeah, at this point, you're basically making things, throwing them that way, and
I think they just got rid of. There's no water left.
That's why my game wasn't working.
yep,
My longheads aren't working too well either. Actually, no, they work all good.
it does mean that you can now just walk out there, though. This is
Can
what
the
beach
Are there
look
any
like.
ships and can they move?
There is ships. I don't believe
I
they
think
can
they can
move
move.
anymore. No, I think they're largely stranded at this point.
Oh dear. There's even a flagship, but he's stuck.
Yeah, they can still shoot. They're just not going anywhere.
Well, in that case, the play of the day is no longer lunkheads, but marauders for the speed.
Yes, at
Good
this
point.
point, speed. Speed is going to be your friend.
Yep.
And the teamers aren't coming out, which we like to see. At this point, it's well and truly won, and we can look at getting on to the next one.
Move on to the next
Yeah,
one.
limited amount of games
fair.
this evening. Blame it on me. I've got work starting early for the next few weeks.
Twig can blame it on himself all he wants. I'm the one who set a finish time for tonight.
Yeah, I like the idea of being able to get to bed, get a reasonable night's sleep, and then get up and function at work the next morning.
Yeah, you guys think that lag is real in the game? The real lag is experienced for the rest of the week while we're all tired from our Sunday night streaming for the
Oh yeah,
knock-on
when
effects.
it messes you up for the best part of the week because you didn't get to sleep on the Sunday night.
Alright, let's get this next one rolling nice and quick. I'm going to jump
think we can
into
get-
spec, ready for bringing you the game, and we'll go from there, I guess.
All right, Raptors making it
Thanks,
easy.
Professor Barr, for the raid of 25 people. Sorry I didn't see that one earlier. Do appreciate jumping into the live. Hopefully we'll be able to entertain your people as well as you were doing for them. Just doing some King of the Hill, and we're just setting up the next game.
We should be pretty much set to go, other than potentially swapping out kings.
We'll leave that one up to you, Tom. I might join Prey for this one in the spectate. I need to chill for a momento. That's the sound of chilling.
What are we going? 1, 2, 3, 6, 8 kings. Do you want 8 or 9?
We'll go 9. 9's been working well because these have been getting quite big. We're up to 53 players, so it's already there in terms of how difficult these ones get for the Kings. We do have some big names there on the Peasants team as well. Classic, KOTH, etc.
Now these are still 45s, aren't they?
Actually, what I am seeing
The
is
9.
very high experienced Kings. Maybe we'll get a couple Kings to swap out. If you want to advertise that, Tom, for some Kings to swap out for Peasants. So we've got Rosie, Duxie, and Cookie. That were in last time. They can stay there if no one wants to replace them. We do ask a minimum of 3 chevrons from Kings as well, because if a King does leak, it is very, very easy for the Kings to lose. So a little bit of experience needed. Are the other teams locked? Maybe we need to unlock the teams if you're listening in Nightmare, just so that we can let some more jump in there. Thank you. Okay, we'll get Samuel Hoper plus 45.
Do we want to do 45s or 50s with the
I'm
experience
just
on the
looking at
outside?
I'm looking at the experience
Ah,
of the Kings. So there's 10 there now. Maybe he's gonna hate me for it. Maybe Cookie Destroyer needs to jump in peasants. We got Harry down the bottom that's just joined into the Kings, and we want to give him a 45, and we'll remove one of the ones that has already been in there.
everything keeps bouncing around.
We're up to 61 now. That is kind of the limit where we do go up to 50 OS. All right, I'll help you go to 50 OS. I'll start at the top. Sorry, not 50 OS, 50 bonus. Ends in the same letters.
Hey, if you could just give yourself OS as simple as you can add bonuses, it would make for some interesting games.
I'd probably make a typo and give myself something low. No, that's a very
sorted.
very experienced Kings, Tom. We'll see how they go. See how the peasants fare. Kings have already got the first win of the night. There are a lot, though. We will see how they go.
I think the start boxes might be a little weird.
Yeah, they need to be
They've
fixed.
just added a third team for the more players, so it's done the things. I'm just going through and sorting IDs at the moment.
We'll see how well this one goes. My tips is going to be for the Kings just to kick things off. That's probably the most experienced Kings team I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've got quite a few high ones.
Got to be brutal, Tom, when this comes to balancing. Hurt people's feelings. They can deal with it. They're all tough.
I'm going to be honest, I'm largely not looking. I'm just trying to get the things ready to be able to hit start. If you want to really test them, you can put air on this round. If you're considering doing that.
We'll better give them some fair warning. I mean, we did say that. Do we put air on this time? We did say we'll try air.
Not for this game, try the next one.
All right, we'll try it next one. We did say that we'll keep experienced Kings in the middle because it is very easy to bomb Kings. You know exactly where their eco is going to be. So you can beeline it. Knowing that your
You don't
bomb's
need
going
to
to
know
get shot
exactly,
down
as
by
long
the
as
guard.
it's there-ish. I think we're going to be good to go.
Might
As
even
this
get to
download
100
finishes,
plague
we
them
will
again.
be...
Almost there. Hopefully our computers can deal with it.
We should be able to.
Anyone else that joins, there we go. Let's kick that one into a 4-star.
Which one's in? You guys see any of the IDs that are overlapping?
90. I'll do that one. Oh, actually, you've already got the codes going. I won't interrupt, but 90 needs to be redone. Go for Babatko, Babatko, the capital B. Sorry, people, that we're just having to sort this one out live. We do get overlaps of the IDs.
Who was that name again?
Babatko, the capital B. And that's the only one I can see.
There's two 19s, so update classics.
Oh, yeah.
And there are two 35s, so update Zelu. ZEL triple O, capital Z.
Welcome to the stream, I Spy with my little eye. And we're at 100 players for this game. Maybe there's the new thumbnail for our next cast.
We have to move. For some of those asking about getting onto the Kings team and things, we somewhat try and rotate people through, but at the moment we're just trying to get it up and running again.
Yeah, but as soon as the game ends, if you want to be a king, jump into Team 2 as soon as Nightmare unlocks those teams, and we will replace those that have a 50 bonus. We'll move them up, and then we'll be able to see who's new to rotating in.
At the moment we're just trying to work out which ones we've got double up so that we can actually get it rolling.
Yeah, feel free to, if you know of any double ups, just say in chat down in the game. See a lot of people doing the search with us. It's very hard to get the IDs picked out when there's so many players.
It's largely just working out which numbers are the double ups at the moment is the challenging bit.
35, 387270. Sorry, that's not the name. It's Zelu. I'll just do it.
35. It's alright, I found 35.
Prey's got it. Prey's got it.
No, still got issues. When we end up with this many people trying
One
to
player unsynced, unfortunately. Hooker.
is that all it was?
Yeah. Let's lock the teams, Nightmare,
I think
so we can't have any more
that
join.
they were already locked. We just need those couple of people to ready up, and then we should be good to go. Just got one download to finish, and then we should be good to go.
Alright, that's it.
Does the experimental units do anything to the unit cap?
Alright, we're just going to have to do it.
One's already up again. Couple already up. When you end up with this many people, not being able to see everyone in the lobby starts to make it interesting. There we go.
Hey, thanks for your patience, everyone. Obviously, very hard to coordinate with this many people. Preview for the 50k upcoming events. Hopefully, it goes a little bit smoother than that. Hoping we see an announcement in the next week or so on when that's going to be and what it's going to look like. I personally can't wait. My computer definitely can, because it's probably not going to be out of hand or how many players are going to be playing in those events.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be working as heaters that day.
Tom, are you in game? Or are you?
No,
with
I'm
us?
in with you guys again.
Hopefully, we get a good game. I reckon this one can maybe feature on the YouTube. With the basic rules, no extra units, so a nice clean King of the Hill. Hot tip for the peasants if you're listening in, you want to see a bit of eco going in on those four corners with a bit of communism happening. I suggest a lot of players around the lava go T1 units when that 10-minute no rush elapses. If you've got units and you rush all at the same time, that's when the Kings probably have the most pressure on them. We saw one game where they actually got coordinated and the Kings lasted all of about 2 minutes.
Yeah, when they was the incisor push, wasn't it? And it didn't last very long at all.
So incisors blitz. The only disadvantage with them is they take a little while to walk up those steep ramps that are next to the lava. They do get up there though. I don't mind seeing some pawns rush as well. And then even one game I was a peasant for that worked quite well, going sprinters at that 10-minute mark, doing a bit of that communism eco in the corners, but not too much. Once you get that T2 lab up and the T2 max is built, as long as you've got enough energy to put all your build power into building sprinters, and they can get quite far in and quite quickly. Fastest unit in the game, I think, potentially. Maybe the tick beats them. All right, I'm going to kick this one off shortly.
Glad someone did the map thing, because I entirely forgot to do that.
This is interesting. We've got better put that in the rules. Peasants.
We've got outer circle only. So it wasn't the rules, and this was a welcome message, so everyone should have seen it.
Yeah. We got 3 players there. Max Mustard, Teresa's, and Latouche going to be removed if you do not move your comms.
Yeah, with this many people, the unit caps start to get fairly restrictive on the Kings.
Yeah.
Because
That is their
unit cap
biggest
counts 2
disadvantage.
units and all of your buildings as well. So things like having enough build turrets to be able to get your units out also counts towards your build cap. Which means that when you get your eco pumping and trying to get as much out as you possibly can, you're right at the limits of what you can actually have available to you. And it looks like we've got a few donations in the middle. Not quite all the way in the middle, but...
Everybody, welcome to Beyond All Reason, and this is AllReasonNoLogic's King of the Hill. We've got a bunch of kings starting up on the hill where they will have a 10-minute no-rush timer protecting them until the horde, that is the peasants, run up out of the crater. The lava will drop, onto the crater. And we're up against, I think it's almost 100 peasants.
We have 96 peasants up against 9 kings. One king in the very middle gets those 8 mechs as all the other kings around the outside push down and grab the 6 and 2 lanes each. With any luck, we'll see some pretty exciting gameplay as the kings manage to get some opening salvos against the peasants, or maybe the peasants will get opening salvos against the kings. With this many players, early damage is going to be key, because we know when we chuck this many players into a map, the peasants certainly can hold back the weight of the kings post that 10-minute mark with just the sheer weight of comms. 95 of them still available right now.
And you've got 2 comms at every
to
ramp.
destroyer in the middle of the map taking on the 7 mechs. So typically the kings will have 6 mexes each for each of the players around the outside, leaving is that 8 mexes for Cookie Destroy in the middle to hoard their eco. Everyone's got a 50% bonus on the middle of the map here. They need that just so they have a chance against this many players. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see these 4 commanders that were detonated around the base that Tom mentioned right at the start there go to Duffy's eco, Cookie Destroy's eco, aka Duffy, and
Looks like
that eco.
Looks like we've got some communist eco going on in the bottom right-hand corner with what looks to be 3 players working to get a T2 lab, hopefully pre the 2-minute 30 mark. But the problem is they're a bit slow on reclaiming their labs. Does look like just below them another pair trying to do a very similar thing. Only 1 T2 lab is needed, and if you can push all them out and get those T2 to everyone in the area early on, you're going to be off to a great start with a lot of metal ready to go for those kings. Looking around to the other side, to the other corners, doesn't look like the bottom left, the top left, or but we are getting a T2 lab out of the top right, though this one's going to be very, very slow as it's not communist eco. So the bottom right definitely doing the best out of everyone on that mark, and going to be seeing those T2s hopefully handed out. The more metal for the team, the better. Got to remember it is a team game, and the better you do together, the better your whole team will do.
Getting out that T2 constructed of the people around you and getting their mexes upgraded makes a huge difference. It means that you can go from trickling a T1 army to pumping a T1 army at that 10-minute mark, and having units to basically put the pressure on across all sides makes a huge difference. If it's only a couple of ramps to push at any given time, then they can largely be held back. If you have half the ramps or more all pushing consistently together, then it gets real difficult to hold it all back, and you only need to find one gap for the kings to start falling.
And it does look like we've just had the first comm detonation of the game. We're going to see a lot more of those. I want to see at least 60 comms surviving to the 10-minute mark, but we will see how that one goes. The extra metal can be an absolute godsend for the peasants. But when you consider that there are 95 comms producing 2 metal a second and 25 power a second, they're off to a very strong start. You can actually see that 28,000 power already being produced by the peasants. That all of the wind and all of the conversion possible, but they do all have to build their own stuff. So
we could destroy a 4,000 metal in the bank. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a booming economy coming up in the next few minutes out of him. But on what you were just saying then with the comms, I'd love to see a good 20 or so comms just march straight into the middle at the start of the game. They're going to do a lot of damage. Commander's the strongest unit in the game.
Actually played one earlier today where a comm managed to do a ludicrous amount of damage at about the 10-minute mark. Just nobody dealt with it. It was great. Not a
Interesting
King of the
thing
Hills
about
game, it's just
detonating
a
the
ranked game.
interesting thing about the
Self-destruct
commanders
phase.
destructing around the map. If you do it on the low level of the peasants, the bench of the ground is slightly above the lava. Looking at the side of the map here, you can see how close it is. So that detonation done by the commander will leave a divot with a nice bit of lava, and it's very hard for your resbots to get in there and reclaim your commander without dying. So it is ideal to go put them up on one of these hills, or just repair the ground.
It's fine.
Before
You
running.
can grab the metal from there. It's no worries at all.
It doesn't burn in the lava, so it's great.
Yeah, no worries.
It doesn't burn, it just melts. It's metal.
Yeah, you can still reclaim melted metal. It's still there. That's how metal works.
Forged in the fires of the crater.
All right, so we're at
What
the
is it
we're at the 6-minute mark effectively, and we see Cookie Destroyer mass manufacturing twitches and getting everything nice and ready for that APHIS transition, going straight into the advance, skipping the fusion. I do not mind this for the center player. They don't have to worry about getting their defenses online. They don't have to worry about the T2 lab. They just need to worry about scaling like crazy. And
What I'm
considering that
liking
when
is
they
what I'm liking seeing out of them, completely lost my train of thought talking over the top of your apologies. I forgot what I was going to say.
reclaiming that lab and then launching straight into the APHIS gives you approximately 50% of what you need. If you reclaim the additional 2 metal storages, that's another 20%. And then as you're going with a plus 60, if this has a 1-minute build, then that is an additional 30. It's an additional 2,000 odd metal. So you're well and truly running ready to go, and the metal will continue to increase as these advanced extractors are going up, though they do take away from some of the pool. This is actually a point where if you are overflowing as the King's player, so for example the red player or the dark orange player, would not be a bad idea to give some of that metal to the center player. They will return it in spades as they come online with an absolutely massive eco that's going to be needed to get those T3 units up and running. Big advice for the Kings: once you get that eco going, you definitely do need to remove your wind and your T1 converters, because they're going to eat well and truly into your unit cap. I do believe the extra pack is not on, so you can't go into those T2 construction turrets, so no saving space there either.
That's why the Cookie was asking for the extra units to be turned on, is that they're only able to build 290 units each of the Kings, and the extra units pack does allow for the bigger, more expensive units of greater range, more abilities. But at least what I'm liking seeing out of Cookie Destroyer is they are Cortex. We usually see a lot more Armada Kings in the middle, and getting demons in King of the Hill are quite powerful, as well as the Karganath to get over those hills.
Just as an example of how restrictive the unit cap is, if you combine the wind of all of the Kings together, that is effectively 1 player's worth of unit cap just sitting on the field already.
And that's possibly why Cookie Destroyer is just going straight into the APHIS and just keeping the build power where it needs to be. 1
Trying
minute
to
and 10
maximize
seconds
on
left.
that level of efficiency and make sure that he can get those units up and running. With 1 minute to go, let's have a zoom out and see exactly what we have got going on. If you bandbox the entire map, all units that turn white will be combat units depending on your settings. And we can actually see quite a few lanes building up, ready to go. We have a large force down in the very bottom of ticks. We'll see if they can do a lot of damage, but the real force is up the top, where we have a big incisor push out of Classic 52 out already. We've seen this before, where he's used his energy storages and minimal wind just to grab all of that overlap and see what he can, overflow, and see what he can do with it. And in this case, it's going to probably be 55 incisors by go time. and there isn't much in the way of defenses. It does look like the red player that is going up against has gone heavily into eco and is going into defenses. T2 defenses are not so good against T1 units. They do a lot of damage, but they do not fire fast enough, and that volume of fire may well be the downfall, especially since both the players to his left and right, Autolab and Megatron, are not going to have the units to back this one up. It's going to come all the way. It's going to come down just to Cookie Destroyer in the middle, backing up these units. Incisors pushing their way in. We also have a reasonably well defended incisor attack from the bottom left, and a good mixed force from the bottom right, but it is going to be those incisors that are going to deal the most damage, and we need to see just how many of them get taken out before they can make it to the base.
Unfortunately, only player that's pushing on the top of the map here, so if all players that had units pushed at the same time at that 10-minute mark, I reckon these incisors would do a lot more damage than what they're currently doing.
Very well cleaned up with those fiends. No eco damage done, and a nice metal deposit ready to go. Classic sending in the comm to try to deal with some of that, but taking big shots from the pulsar is definitely going to get the D on the pulsar. But there are a couple of units here. Classic will lose their comm, but while that's going on, there is a nice big looks like rovers pushing into the yellow player, who did move their forces over to defend. Good thing that Cookie Destroyer is dedicating a lot of this early time to getting units up to defend this, and it does look like the top is going to hold. Looking around the map, the Kings have managed to hold off that 10-minute assault most of the with minimal damage, and we are going to see some eco scaling and hopefully some offense by the Kings. We do have the blue player down the bottom, Novalexander, grabbing some long-range turrets in the top that can rain down fire onto the Kings. That is a no-no. We've got to get those ones removed. Just remember...
Have people be able to defend those ramps, but not being able to shell into the middles.
Does look like that big tick ball that I talked about in the bottom of the map is now making its way in. It has found a gap and is heading for the middle. Lots of it has been taken out by some great pounder shots, as well as a mammoth with 31 kills over there, but it has made it into the middle. And oh, they're hugging the buildings, unfortunately. You have to make sure, if you do get inside an area like this, try not to hug those buildings, because you do take collateral damage when they explode, but grabbing all the build power is a win in and of itself, and moving around the map, potentially grabbing more, unfortunately not this time. Still, the build power does mean that the pink player is going to struggle to get units up in the short term. We still do have that player building a lot of high ground artillery in the bottom side. The tremor is perfectly okay, but the structures are not. Looking around the map, the Kings still stuck on the defensive. We just got a pause here as we clean up a couple of things, and we'll get right back to the action.
Kings have done a good job of holding off so far. There hasn't been as many pushes as we'd like to see. There's been a couple of units that have been able to get in and do some minimal damage, a few converters and those sort of things on this bottom side. But nothing that's going to cripple the Kings. The next question is whether they'll be able to make it up any ramps or not, because that's the next challenge.
We do have a counter-offensive coming from the Kings on the bottom side of the map, but unfortunately has been pushed back by a very nice amount of Beamers, LLTs, and I think that there are a couple of Dragon Claws in the mix. Doesn't look like the Kings are going to have a very good time as this one ramps along. The Peasants have done a great job to curve any sort of aggression at the 10-minute mark, and it's going to come all down to just how fast the Kings can scale, and whether or not they get those T3 units protected by spam, which is a very hard thing to do considering the unit cap. without which it's very easy to get degunned.
Nice micro on the left-hand side here by Hescop with these Sheldons and a bunch of the rovers being sent in by his adjacent neighbour to stop these tigers doing any damage. Keeping the APM up, that's what this is really doing. Just
If you-
1 or 2 peasants is keeping the APM away from 1/9 of the King army. That's what you want out of every lane really at the same time, so that the Kings can't do their macro in the background, so they can't expand. Still happening on the south side of the map, where Apple Arm, one of the regulars, jumping in with a nice juicy SAR supported by a commander. That's going to do some work against these fiends. I think they can one-shot them almost. Yeah, almost. Getting down to about 10% with a direct hit.
Rovers giving good vision, and then that tremor adding additional fire, just slightly damaging those units so that these can do much more damage. Can kill units with each shot. There are quite a lot of fiends here. They might be able to clean this one up, saved by the Quaker at least for now. But those fiends, even though the fiends are going to get that Tsar, each one of those fiends costs, what's the cost of a fiend? Fiend is 200 metal, and a Tsar is 1900 or 2700.
Tsars are...
A Tsar is
1650.
1650, which means that if it trades at a rate of 8-to-1, which it definitely did, then you're going to have a very, very good time working on those Tsars. It didn't even die, which is even better, though the Quaker does look like the Quaker went down, which is a pretty big loss.
Something I'm just going to quickly point out in the middle of the map. Cookie Destroyer going a very interesting tactic, building an army of Twitches that are building fiends, and he is giving those fiends out to the player that needs them most. That's what we just saw out of the pink lane there. Fiends being sent down to Evis, and now they're getting sent over to the right hand side where we got Peanut Buttery, almost losing those fusions to a rush, but getting in there and being defended by those fiends. Nicely done out of the central player.
But it does look like Peanut Buttery has got quite a sizable eco going. 3 fusions, an Aphis, and a second Aphis on the way. Getting these things up is a good idea, but if you are losing your lane, that can be a problem of itself. Just remember, you are 1/9 of the King's team, which means that if you go down, the Kings lose a huge amount.
Who's got this? I don't know at this stage. There's been no players eliminated. Usually we've seen 1 or 2 peasants fall at this stage. Unfortunately, no Kings being able to push up this ramp.
I think the fact that the
does
Kings
surprise me.
haven't been able to push up the ramp is a problem for the Kings.
Yes, I think that means that the advantage is currently to the peasants. The pink players lost most of their base. There was a couple of TikTok rovers that made it in, and the tremors from the next door king did a number on pink's base for what was left of it.
Got comments about the lagginess that happens when you've got 100+ players in a game. We do usually cap these at about 80 players max, but every now and then the mods like to open these up to include everyone, which is what this game's all about, the community.
Does look like we had an aggressive comm in the top side of the map, but it has been taken out by the constant flow of units out of the red player. Hopefully we will continue to see these areas defended and some units pushing in. I can see a real big danger heading towards the red player once this army decides to go.
Oh, we've got some
It is only
ticks.
T1, but that is a nice hefty chunk of units, and it is looking like it's going to be backed up by some T2 snipers when it does come on in.
I'm really interested by this eco that's happening on the right. It is dangerously close to the peasants. I feel like I'd build eco behind my starting position as a king.
Oh, definitely. This is way too far forward for an eco. It's basic. It's almost in arbiter range from the ramps. It's arbiter's just getting into range now. Once that first fusion pops, that's going to be a lot of damage heading in. They just need to get some vision of it and choose to fire it. But grabbing the T2 labs, one of the things that's been happening here is lots of T2 labs being built, potentially worth reclaiming or trying to some ghosts coming in and shutting down some of those fiends, and it does look like they're going to head in and shut down the power for that player, shut down any ability to defend this one. And with full vision of those Aphis, we should be able to get some Arbiters firing in and taking those out. Ticks running through to grab vision, but Demons on the way to clear those up, which means they're only going to grab a tiny bit of vision, and Cookie Destroyer is still safe for the moment, and it does look like that's going to have to be the lane of attack, as that has been the side which is experiencing the most damage and taking and having to suffer through the most units at the moment. And if we can keep those Aphis and the fusion up, it'll be a very, very good thing for the team.
If only we saw these snipers push a little bit just to take out those last few fusions, like 1% on one of them. 1%.
Oh,
we'll see.
There we go.
There it goes.
There it goes.
Just down to one Aphis. That was a little bit of self-damage. Kings kicking an own goal there.
Unfortunate, but also inevitable. The big downside for the Kings right now, they do not have the spam to keep these demons safe. The demon is going to get into that sniper line, but it is essentially dead. 3 snipers remaining. I would call that a decent trade, but it is painful to lose all of that just because the spam numbers are limited. One of the things that you do need to do in this situation, potentially put up some build turrets, put up some spam labs, and then just put them in the name of Peanut Buttery, so then all the units that come out are in his name and using his population cap. Trying to
take your attention to the left-hand side. You'll see a ball of Marauders.
Marauders are very
make
good.
It in.
Very, very good quick units, and all you have to do is get a couple of shots on target. The ecos are so dense over here, all it would take is a slight smattering onto either the build power or onto that conversion, but great defense there, body blocking everything and preventing it from going down. I reckon there could have been some damage done there, but unfortunately for the peasants, not this time.
When you get units between the Marauders and what they're trying to shoot at, they can't actually hit their targets. That line of sight becomes really important for some of those sort of things. When you can get the units in between what you're trying to save and what's trying to kill them, you've got a much higher chance of keeping it alive.
Getting to that stage of the game where the peasants are able to build spam, but the Kings can't afford that with those unit caps getting so high. Their eco taking up about half of the unit cap, along with the build power that they've got to fund their units. Nothing left to actually build those units.
Looks like we've got some Junos going off into the middle, which will get removed when they can be found.
Looks like Red tried to make an assault up the ramp, but unfortunately too much there to allow a small group of Jags to make their way through. Does look like the demons are building up in quite some numbers, but we do have comms in the way, ready to try and deal with anything that's going to come through this area. Comms are an absolutely great way to deal with those demons. Does look like purple is on the offensive in the top right, but those T1 units are a little bit late to the fight over here, having to fight a lot of T2, but they are giving good vision for the Tremors and for the Ambassadors, so plenty of damage being done in trade. The Kings are not doing too badly on the eco, but the Peasants have definitely pulled ahead at this point, and we're going to have to see a very strong push out of all of the T3 coming from the middle if we want to survive. If the Kings want to survive this one, they have to take and hold at least some of the high ground.
I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the bottom right. Unfortunately not getting a Kagi push the whole way through, but all these Tremors are just clearing the path for the pot, our Maroon commander, and we do have a number of Razorbacks coming in, and they should be enough to clean these up if they don't watch out.
I think regardless of watching out, they're close enough and fast enough, they should be able to clean up all of these Tremors, and that is a huge amount of metal that's going to be lost to those Tremors. Lost as those Tremors go down. Tremors are a wildly expensive unit, but you can see why, because of the damage they kick out and the range that they have, able to fire from what was relative safety, but not quite anymore.
I'm going to spread out those Razorbacks a little bit more than that, Scruffy. You can see how much damage they're taking from the hits of just that SAR. Splash damage affecting almost all of those Razorbacks at once, and they all went down very quickly.
Titan deciding not quite today, will back up to fight another time.
We do have a push on the right-hand side. Those demons have cleared out most of the spam and now going to take on the pork of the right-hand side of the map. We do have commanders in position, but how much damage are they going to do? I don't know. At least one demon going down.
Will definitely get his invisibility back online before that, but
And you can see
Cookie Destroyer is a very strong player and is targeting at ground. Did that demon just survive a D-gun?
no, didn't get a D gun off.
Ah,
That was
it
something
lost
else.
a huge chunk of health in just a moment, and it looked like it survived one, but
Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe I could be
that
wrong.
would be quite the crazy. But yes, these two demons now up in the high ground. There is so much eco here. The question is how much can they do, and the answer is not too much, as D-gun plows through both of them. Very unfortunate there, and a big expense that has been shut down. Get in there, grab that reclaim peasants, or even res them for yourself.
I wouldn't mind seeing a constructor or two being given off to... oh, actually, we do have peanut buttery coming back online slowly. Very slowly.
Does it look like, though, the Kings have managed to mass quite an eco, with the red player on a 4 fusion, the yellow player on a 6 fusion, and the cream player on a 10 advanced fusion at the moment. Very strong plays, but you do have to get those units out to bear. You have to bring them into battle. If you spend too much time on the eco, you're just going to allow the peasants to create a wall that is unassailable. Yellow is getting their offense on, though, with a whole bunch of vanguards starting to shell around the top. You have to make sure to manually fire those so they are not firing into the ticks that are making their way down. You want those shots to be landing into the fog of war, because you know with so much up there you can just blind fire and you will hit things. Very few players keeping their wins in a grouping of 2 wide, which means that you're going to have a lot of damage done. Does look like the top right is coming down with a big T3 play, but there are a lot of snipers here and welders. If these T3 units get in front of the spam, those snipers are going to do a lot of damage. One thing I would definitely be trying to do is manual targeting right now. Grab the Marauders, then grab the Shivas. The Marauders much faster, so those will need to go down first. Very well defended by the Kings right here, losing minimal and taking out quite a lot. Unfortunately, though, because the snipers are claiming a lot of these lives, that does mean that there is not much left in the way of wreckage, so the reclaim is not going to be insane. A couple of Razorbacks a Razorback trying his best to cut through, but with the demon there and the snipers, doesn't make it much further than anything else. Good hold there for the Kings.
What I'm seeing on the left-hand side of the map is probably what I would want to see out of Kings at this stage of the game, with the unit cap completely affecting. Demons protecting long-range units, and we've got catapults coming in and clearing out a lot of the peasants. No one really being able to do much damage against them. No spam coming out, and commanders going to be what are needed, but they've all been used up on this side of the map. There's only 2 commanders within walking distance of this demon. But it does go down just to these mammoths, so nicely done. Mammoths are very powerful. You can see mammoths versus Razorbacks 1-on-1 is almost a dead heat. And
the issue that VIP is running into right now, they have reached the unit cap and they keep putting down more build power, so every time a unit dies, build power is going down instead of units. They're sitting currently at a 1200 income, but they are only spending at a rate of fractions.
perhaps listening in, you can see the slow reclaim of all the build power at the back of their eco, which I do like to see.
Definitely do need to balance things out just a little bit if you want to get those units out.
Another massive demon push on the right hand side, and I'm playing catch ups a little bit behind here, but they are getting through, and that's going to be game over for first of our peasants, I think.
Very well done, persistently pushing down that ramp. I expect it's probably been 100,000 metal lost just to make it up that ramp. But once you are up and once you're past those defensive areas, the amount of damage you can get done is absolutely unbelievable. Peasants' eco is dropping at the rate of hundreds a second.
Nicely done by a Cookie Destroyer, knowing where to push as well. Knew that that ramp had already taken out 2 commanders, so not too many to push against, and the commanders really are what are most risky for the Kings to come up against. Oh, that is a big explosion.
That was a very big explosion. The demons getting in to some eco that was a little bit too far on the front line. The T3 threat on the bottom right hand side has been taken out for now, or at least some of it has, but we do need to see some of these corners getting assaulted because that is going to be an area of huge contention over time. Kings...
We have a Titan almost hitting the base on the bottom of the map. Strophy Con's Titan just targeting that Aphis, getting it down to 47%. Can we get a little bit more damage on it? Just needing that recharge to come back online. And
there it goes. That is the pink player's eco completely destroyed. And it was right on the edge of the Titan's life. Very, very worthwhile sacrifice. That's going to set the Kings back a long way because that is one area that is no longer going to be producing units. Again, this is one of those things, if you are in this position, give labs, give eco, give whatever you can to the other players, just so that you can keep your unit cap managed.
What I'd love to see at this point is that pink player gets given, say, an Aphis or 2 and enough conversion to keep things running, because then they only have to get up labs and build power. They don't have to worry about rebuilding their economy again, because that takes a little while.
Oh dear, a catapult destroying another chunk of pink space, this time friendly fire trying to clear up some of those units. That is the advantage of getting inside the inner ring. Once you do have all of these big heavy hitting units, they can definitely do a lot of damage to yourself.
Pink player being assisted now by Cookie Destroyer, doing what he's meant to do, giving off a bunch of twitches with the build command, overflowing eco into each player, and going to quickly come back online. I'll be curious to see how fast this player comes back online. Evis with a massive OS of 44. I wouldn't be surprised if they're back up and at it with some advanced economy and T3 coming out within a few minutes.
Do have a big Titan push in the top left side. Unfortunately, OneCom is going to claim, I reckon, all 4 of those Titans. No spam and no support units means no bueno.
As Kings at this stage of the game, I think the spam for you needs to be T2 units. You definitely can afford it, and you need something a little bit chunkier than your standard ticks, your rovers, even your grunts and your pawns, just to be able to last that little bit longer with that unit cap where it's at.
Top right side peasants are getting very aggressive right here, sending in a large force of demons, fiends, and whatever else they can throw at it down 2 of the ramps, trying to push into red and brown at the moment. Does look like there's plenty of units to clean this one up, but the front position has been mostly destroyed at this point, and a decent amount of damage is done, and it is not stopping the units that were pulled away by red to try and deal with this. Currently not in a position to intercept all those bulls, thankfully, just enough available to push them back. Interesting question. Do walls count towards the unit cap? Because I'm seeing a bunch of walls around these pulsars. They're definitely doing a half decent job at keeping the pulsars alive, but if they could be other pulsars, probably not worth it.
Maybe somebody in chat can answer that question. I've got no idea.
Would be
It's
very
not a question
interesting.
that you normally have to answer.
Well, I know mines count.
I'd assume that they count towards the unit cap. I'm assuming any entities do.
I'd be very interested if walls do, because you can't repair walls.
We've got a question in chat by Softwam, Softy. Is air disabled in these? Yes, it is. However, for the first time, I think next game we are going to open it up. I might even jump in myself and see how we can go as Kings. We'll get a bigger bonus than usual, and air will be online it will be very difficult with this unit cap. So we might need to drop a few dummy commanders into the game so that the unit cap is more balanced out between kings and peasants.
Will be an interesting one. Does look like in the bottom left we do have counter catapults heading towards the kings. Vision being provided by a brave force of hounds that have fallen to mass catapult fire from both sides. Doesn't quite look like it's going to be able to push in just yet.
Real action's happening on the bottom where we've got Cookie Destroyer with Titans and Juggernauts. A few demons going down ahead of those. There are going to be a lot of spam. I think this might be enough to get through, despite the fact that there are this many Titans. With the grunts coming through from the pot at the same time, hopefully there'll be enough to distract these snipers, which are starting to go down. And all you need to do is get these Juggernauts close enough that when they die, their nuclear explosion takes out some of this eco.
Just remember, if you control D a Juggernaut, it does take 10 seconds to die, but the explosion is significantly bigger. I would actually be throwing a control D down on that front Juggernaut right now. If it detonates with one of those explosions, it'll be absolutely huge. 2 comms coming in, pincering it. Definitely going to take it out with a D gun, provided that it is. Yep, there we go. Oh, double D gun. Double Juggernauts down by that comm, but the comm is now down. 2 more moving in to try and clean this up. Does look like the first one has been spotted, and the second one has also been spotted, so should be taken down. Just a couple more shots. There it goes. That's the last comm in close range in this bottom side, so this could be another huge amount of damage done by Cookie Destroyer in the middle of the map. As players start to go down, Titans coming in with sniper backup and another comm to try and deal with this, but if they just walk the other way, this could be huge, and they definitely are heading up towards a large eco center for the peasants. Though, if you do look at the numbers right now, the peasants are sitting at almost 10,000 metal per second, compared to the kings that is only at 5,000. Do bear in mind, though, that is spread out amongst a lot of players, and they are going to be having to buy a lot of duplicate items.
That number is increasing, though. The peasants have more of a lead now than they did previously.
And that is
sitting at
Peasants doing
50 to
quite well on
60
the
earlier.
top right as well, with 3 lanes now very much under control of the peasants, and all we need is one of these lanes to fall.
This pressure did start with that initial attack that we talked about, but it has just continued non-stop. You actually do need certain things. I actually reckon a couple of behemoths over here would do wonders to try and stop this push, and it would counter the peasants' behemoth quite nicely. Did have a single tick make it into one of the king's bases, but it was cleaned up. Another chunk of eco taken out over on this bottom side. Comms trying their best to make it in, but eco centers are falling very, very nicely. Does look like this comm's going to get a good little D gun right here. Does get the Titan, is going to get the Juggernaut as well. Nicely done. Doesn't quite go down though. So the comm does live another day to try to grab yet another prize. This one could be quite the big. No, it has been spotted. Do we have any comms? We do still have 1 or 2 comms in the area, but they are not quite in position to defend, so these units will continue to run amok. But the behemoth is an existential.
On the top right side.
The behemoth is an existential threat on the top right side, and is just slowly making its way into the base, barely damaged at this point.
Only a little bit further, but it is a long way for a behemoth with one of the slowest movement speeds in the whole game. The barely mobile tank, or barely mobile heavy turret, they call it. May meet its match with 2 Titans and a Juggernaut, but if only it gets close enough to take out this build power, do a bit of damage, and there's a couple of Aphises just beyond that. I like that the Demon's coming up behind to help us support and take out some of this spam, which is giving a really nice surround bonus on the Behemoth. Taking a lot more damage now than what it was previously, with units on all sides. but it is just beelining it straight for the middle of the map. I don't know if it's going to get there. Half the health going in about the last 20 seconds of gameplay, but you can see how much that weapon damage does. Almost like a D-gun taking out a T2 lab in just one shot. And one more shot and that should be build power down. There it goes. And a chain reaction that's going to be this player spam offline now. Just a little bit closer and we're going to see some aphises go down, but we do have 2 more Titans right there.
Does look like a lot of the firepower that has been killing that behemoth has now moved on, and so it is getting deeper and deeper in. All it would take is 1 or 2 good shots into that eco. It's only got a fraction of health left, but there's the D-gun to finish it off. But if we look on the bottom side of the map, we do have 2 juggernauts moving their way in and a behemoth down there as well. Bottom left, some build power taken out by the detonation of the first juggernaut. And we'll see if any more can make their way in.
Ooh.
What happened just there? Massive Thor damage, I think that was. Just chain reacted across 2 ecos, and that is all she wrote for 2 of the kings. And now a nice open lane into the main eco center in the middle. The ticks already making their way in, and the Thor's going to continue to push. I don't think that there's actually enough here to clean that up, and it does look like one side of conversion and build power destroyed, and Cookie Destroyer calling the resign vote as these units are making their way in. This has been very well fought by the Kings, but unfortunately as soon as one area does go down, it is very, very hard for them to maintain at this point in the game.
Been quite a close one, but definitely the peasants on the front foot for most of it. Only a couple lanes going down to the Kings, and that I think is just purely down to the unit restriction. I did hear that there will be an update potentially where we can see the unit caps balanced between the teams. Whilst that's going on, I'm just noticing a few Junos being sent into the middle of the map. I do ask that, there's the resign vote. We do ask in these games that Junos only be used defensively.
Thankfully though, when they are used on the Kings, it is not, when there's this many players, it's not such a big deal because the Kings can't really afford to be building ticks anyway. The only thing it gets rid of is the radars and the jammers, which that in itself is a bit of a problem.
Over to those graphs, and yeah, a lot of damage coming out of those Kings, all very powerful, but I just think there were too many peasants this game.
The nice thing to see is that 5 of the Kings were the top 5 in damage, and then another 2 of them were only 1 spot behind them, which means the Kings did a very, very good job with what they were given, but unfortunately there was just too much overwhelming force. But if you look at this bottom right hand side, you can actually see just how much was cleared out by the Kings. Had they managed to finish this off, they may have been able to redirect some of their forces and potentially started to wrap things up around the map. But when it came time to try to do that, a lot of units were needed for defense because the other corners came online and really pushed the Kings too hard to allow them to do something like that. So well played by both teams, but when the numbers get this high, the peasants most certainly have a much easier time defending against that T3 because of all of the comms.
Alright, we're going to try it out for the first time. We're going to turn air on. We just want to see what this is like, so apologies in advance if it absolutely is not great for the Kings, which I have a feeling could be the case. What I will ask of the moderators is if we cap this as a 40 versus 40 max, so max 80 players. Otherwise this might lag us out a little bit too much. We're going to go OS 20 or above, and at least 4 chevrons for all Kings. And we'll be upping that bonus as well, because we're going to have to see a lot of anti-air go down. Okay, we need 1 more King with high experience. Do we have to unlock?
Potentially.
There we go. We've had a force. We're going to up the bonus to. What do you guys reckon for this? Air is on. I think we might have to go higher than usual and go
75.
65. You're going 75.
I reckon 75. It is a lot of air defense will be needed because a lot of players that are at the back will attack with air, I reckon.
All right, Tom, you start at the top. I'll start at the bottom. We'll go 75 for each.
Yep. Yeah, this will be an interesting one. I feel like it'll be sort of make or break in that first push. Because you'll either have enough defense, you'll either have enough air, or you won't. So I expect this to be a relatively short, fairly swingy sort of game. Although in saying that, if the investment's put into air instead of ground units, then we could see entirely the opposite happen. If you get a bunch of ticks and light vehicles in, it could well go entirely the other way.
Just while we've got some downtime, I'm gonna eat myself a nice piece of cake.
Where'd you get that
Very
from?
nice piece of cake. I don't know where I got that from. Well, actually, I do know where I got that from. I got it from your mum.
Quite literally.
And
That wasn't even a joke.
I'm not actually joking. His mum makes fantastic cakes. And so I've got a lovely piece right here, so I'm going to enjoy that.
Do we have the mods in chat with us? Nightmare, if you're listening in, can you just leave me a note if adding just a few inactive AI is the best way to go about balancing the number of kings? Sorry, the number of units that we can build. This is probably not going to work. All right, I'm just adding the inactive AI. I'm assuming that that is. There we go. That'll round us up to 15 players. That should give us a few more population. Okay.
Alrighty then, let's get ready to kick this one off. There's a half decent chance this will be the last game of the night, unless it's a complete and total disaster, in which case we'll throw one more into the mix.
Okay, I'm just getting told that is not how it works, adding the inactive AI. How does it work then? Let me know. I don't know how to do this. I'm not a mod. I'm not a dev. I just like the game bar. Fun. There's no way to do it. Yeah, I know Cookie Destroyer was going to go /taker. I was already going to have it typed out, and my computer loads the game faster than his. That greedy boy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, looks like we just capped at our 200 and something, 300 and something units each.
Actually, that is a very interesting question. We have noticed that Twig does load in faster than just about everyone else. And I know that he's running an AMD CPU and an AMD GPU. I, on the other hand, am running a NVIDIA GPU and an Intel CPU. I'm also running a fair bit more of a powerful PC. Just sort of curious if the game is more optimized towards AMD or if it's just something along those lines. Other potential factors is that I'm running more screens at a higher resolution. Just interested if anybody does know why that would be. Because I want to beat him into games.
Let's kick this off before we get too many players in here.
You go, OP Man saying that the AMD X3D CPUs most certainly take some advantage of the engine. At least I'm paraphrasing. Miss Duffy is saying that it is higher clock speed CPUs. That I would be surprised if he's running at higher than a 5.5 gigahertz, which is what I'm sitting at.
Just waiting for those last couple of players to ready up and finish the download, and then we'll hit start.
Oh, there's some downloading. I think there's none left downloading, so we just need a... There we go. We do ask anyone that joins to just ready up instantly, because it is so hard to find that forced start when people are loading in every couple of seconds.
Yes, do have more cores, so we may potentially be getting slightly higher single core performance, though I don't think so on that one either. There you go, so
I suppose I gotta jump out of this one, don't I?
the NVIDIA GPU is favored, so maybe my next build might need to be an AMD CPU and an NVIDIA GPU, just to absolutely mess things around. Alright, let's switch those views over. And let's get this underway as all of our players start to load in. Not quite as big of a game as last time, but that should give the Kings a bit more of a chance, considering that air is on. We just have to make sure that's very obvious to everyone, though, considering that it now will show up in your build menu, where before it did not. That should most certainly give some idea. Alrighty then, Twig, you were the one that wanted to put air on for this one. Why don't you explain what you think is going to change things up?
It changes the game completely. All it takes is one nice bombing run in one direction to get through the air defenses that the Kings will have. I hope they'll have, seeing as I'm one of them. And you don't really need to target much because there's going to be economy everywhere. So chances are you're going to drop something on something.
If you can hit that dark brown bit, you'll be doing alright.
I think that this is going to be super important for the Kings to maintain really heavy control of the outer ring, so then they can put their air defenses further out so that the bodies of all the planes don't fall onto things like their build power and their conversion. One of the things we did do in the lead up to this was do some testing around what anti-air is particularly good, how much it takes to shoot down a dragon, and all that sort of thing. And one of the things that we did discover is that the Armada anti-air seemed to be slightly better than the core anti-air. So we should see that one going. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the air-on version of King of the Hills. This is a trial game. We'll see exactly how it goes. We do have 9 kings in the middle and 69 kings around the outside. And we'll see exactly what that results in. That does mean there is potential for people to try and break the 10-minute no-rush rules as they try to fly planes in. So I'm going to ask that the moderators be very, very... keep their eyes very much so out on that one. What do we think is going to happen for the way this is going to change the game? Well, the control of that outer ring is going to be more critical than ever, because if the air can make it in, even if it's shot down, those planes will still fall and damage will still be done. We also think that the unit cap is going to play a very big role, because the fighter swarms that would be most effective at dealing with the air will be very limited for the Kings, as there is only a small fraction of the units available to them. Joining me is Twig and Tank Tom, though Twig is... Actually, it isn't Twig, he is in-game. It's just me and Tank Tom out here. Tank Tom, what do you want to see? What do you want to see from this game now that air has been turned on?
I'm kind of intrigued as to whether I want to see the massive bombing runs or see the units come in underneath them and clear out the bases that way. It's interesting that all the Kings have gone with their fairly standard bot starts for everyone. Only one of them's gone with an air lab, Interesting to see how that affects the build time. You've got less build power, but more speed with the air.
Will be interesting
Okay.
to see. I know that one of the things that we tested very early on in the lifespan of King of the Hill, this is before it was even being streamed, was using one of the settings that gives you a drone to start with, just a single flying drone. The difference that made shaved about 2 minutes off of the build, which is ridiculous, but just the extra couple of wins and the extra couple of mexes in the first few seconds of the game make a crazy amount of difference. So hopefully we'll see that the air makes a pretty big change, and we may end up running some air nights and some non-air nights. We'll see exactly how it goes, but the other thing that could happen, this could also be a complete disaster, with one side falling very, very harshly at that 10-minute mark. We'll be excited to see first comms going down. These are some self-detonations for extra metal. It does look like this top left corner is going to be a scary place with the T2 lab already coming down, and the metal needed for it on the ground waiting to be reclaimed. Nice little lava pool that the comms sit in and bathe in as they are getting eaten. This does happen because we have changed the topography of the map, and you can see the lava level is incredibly close to the sides. Full reclaim there on the comm. Still got a couple of mexes to be taken in the middle of the map, but it does look like the air is slightly slower. Actually, it's about on par with the bot start, which is quite nice. So
Yeah, those one constructor's managed to finish the 4 in the time that it's taken the rest of them to send a couple of constructors out. So I think the air was quicker. It got its first mechs up before the others did.
there you go. And I know for the T2 it's going to be great because you'll have plenty of T1 construction aircraft to follow around the T2 and make up for any sort of build power problems. One of the things to bear in mind, though, a air lab does take quite a lot more energy to deal with than any of the other labs, but the payoff to that does seem to be quite well worth it. We'll see how that player goes as time goes along. Looking around the map, we do have T2 in the bottom right hand corner. We've got it coming up in the bottom left. It is still coming up in the top left. Doesn't look like they're sharing between them. We've got 3 labs coming up in that top left side, and on the top right we've got 1 lab coming down now, and I don't think they're overly sharing, or that lab should be well and truly up. So I think that the Kings are actually in a pretty good position. That plus 75 is going to be helping them a lot, and the peasants are going to be quite on the ropes at that 10-minute mark, which is something we have not seen for a very long time.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Fairly standard builds coming out from pretty much everyone at this stage. It'll be great to see whether that changes once we hit the sort of 8-minute mark. I expect that rather than going into the T2s, we'll start to see the air lab coming down. Great to see the transports being used to get the T2 constructors out to players in the bottom right here.
Very smart play using that air as an option while it is available. So we're not actually seeing that much air for the peasant teams. I'm seeing 1.
No, this is where I'm wondering whether we're going to see more of it
2.
coming down.
Only seeing 2 air labs for the peasants. I've probably missed 1 or 2, but there's not that many available at the moment. What the?
No, I think it's just that bottom right is all I'm really seeing, unless there's a lone one somewhere else.
So it'll be an interesting difference this time round. We did make sure to tell everyone in chat, both beforehand and at the start of the game, that air is available, so they should be well and truly aware. If you were in the King's position, what would you be doing right now?
I think what they're doing at the moment makes sense. Getting up the standard sort of builds. You still want to get to that fusion and T2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting that we're going to see some T2 air labs, but I guess we'll find out.
Self-destructed.
If I was in the middle, I would be focusing on getting very strong defenses in the ring, and then going for massive air raids. I wouldn't even worry about having ground troops at all. I would be relying entirely on cleaning things up with gunships, and cleaning them up with towers on the ground. That plus 75 gives you a lot of freedom. Should be very manageable to get into an APHIS if you so chose to. And with that, you would be able to power out a crazy amount of defensive structures, and then you would be able to push out quite a strong amount of your of your offensive units, bombers, gunships, all that sort of thing. Considering just how much the peasants would have to invest to deal with that, I think that you would be able to find places to punch out.
Yeah, I expect that the Kings will be able to get enough air up and running to get a bombing run through no matter what. If you lose 3/4 of your bombers and kill the base anyway, the base is dead, the objective's achieved, you did the job.
Yes, and they can't reclaim fallen air. So the amount of available resources that you're going to be giving to the peasants for failed attacks is nothing. They'll still be able to get the repair. They'll still be able to get the reclaim on their own units, but they won't be able to get it onto yours. Now we do have 2 minutes to go, and it does look like a couple of the players are dealing with this in a very standard way, just getting in a lot of units. The bottom left side is very, very heavy on the units right now. They have a couple of they've got a couple of trashes, but then a lot of grunts and plenty of goblins. Doesn't look like Legion is on, which I didn't realize. So that's going to be an interesting one too. I don't know if all the players know Legion is on, but they'll find out quickly.
There's less eco out with the Kings than I was kind of expecting there to be with the plus 75.
Oh, with like testing this to work out what we should be having these at, I know plus 75 I can get fusion into APHIS and still have a T2 lab and about 20 units by the 10-minute mark.
The big thing is the build power. You need enough build power to make it work.
20 to 25 turrets is the go-to, and 1,000 energy to have them building into an APHIS gives you an APHIS in a minute. So
yeah, I think we worked out that it's 25 build towers and 130, 140 metal a second gets you an APHIS a minute.
And that is a very, very strong start, especially considering that once you've got the first one up, you can scale that like crazy. So this player in the middle should be at a huge advantage with that plus 75. The other thing to bear in mind is that at plus 75, instead of producing 3,000 energy, they are producing 5,200 odd. And that means that they can power 8 or 9 converters, and each of those converters will be producing 17 instead of 10. So you're getting over 120 metal per APHIS if you've got a plus 75. So hoorah right there. 10 minutes has passed, the lava has dropped, and now we have attacks going in. We do have some air coming from the top right-hand side, but that was grouped up, and it all went down to a single volley. So now it's going to come down to the ground attack. We do have a large amount of goblins moving in, but the grunts are not going in with them, and this is a huge amount of defenses to be pushing into. It looks like 9 LLTs, a couple of dragons moors, and we do have plenty of salamanders. Control D on the comm did try to take that out, but unfortunately didn't get the defensive position. The grunts are going now. They are going to take out those salamanders, but there is still too much defense for them to push through. The peasants' best chance
pushing out on the left-hand side there for Orange, taking out a commander. Looks like they're going to get another one as well.
And these are T2 gunships as well, so huge amount of damage. Able to be kicked out, but the lash is a really good move, and the comm explosion taking many of them out. So a huge metal investment right there that has been pushed back, at least for the time being, but the explosion has taken out one base already.
A question I've got for you, is this how you were expecting it was going to start?
Not at all. I was expecting way more air. Way more
I was expecting bombing runs to come in from most sides.
Yeah.
But this is playing as a very standard sort of game.
Here we go. We do have fighters and bombers starting to make their way in from the bottom right. The bombers have found a path that is going to take them right into the middle. There are some screamers that are going to take these out, though. Really good move by the player in the middle to put those there for anything that did sneak past. No major damage there, but if there'd been just a couple more, I think there would have been good damage. Kings managing to do good damage on the left-hand side. This is a side that usually takes a lot of damage. Either the left or the right-hand side is a great place to attack if you are a king, because there is very, very little in the way of backup for them. There's only the 5 metal spots realistically in that area that can do anything. So you really do have to rely on the corners branching out to help you. The lasher attack from this left side, unfortunately for the peasants, cleaned up without getting too much damage done, and because it was out of place, the air did manage to do more than expected. Another nice orange just sending wave after wave of these wasps into the enemy bases, and they are doing work. This is the 3rd wave, and I think this will be the 3rd comm as well as the 3rd base taken out. Actually, the comm going to survive on just a fraction of health. Just a tiny bit of miss micro there. Managed to keep that comm alive and that base alive, but another comm has been taken out. This is a lot of eco damage being done by Cookie Destroyer. Cookie Destroyer did read the assignment and knew exactly what was going on here, and being nice and protected on each side by players that went heavy into units has worked out very, very well for him.
Not having to fight up the ramps has made it relatively easy. Or it seems to have given the advantage to the Kings. Yes, there's anti-air, but when you've got enough T2 gunships to deal with it, and you can send them out in these waves.
The thing to bear in mind is, despite all of this damage that the Kings are managing to do, it is all contained in this one small area. They haven't managed to break any of the corners, and they haven't really managed to do much more than they usually do against these positions, making good use of Quakers to attack the ramparts. But beyond that, not the best. But beyond that, still doing the peasants still holding out very nicely. Gunships coming in to try and clean up some of this, but Jags a very good unit to be fighting when using when air is on, because they do come with that small AA missile.
I keep forgetting that.
I keep forgetting it at my detriment, so I made sure to stop forgetting it to my detriment.
Yeah, it's always nice to use the strategies that kill you to return the favor, isn't it?
Exactly. It looks like there is enough AA in this left-hand corner to stop these waves of wasps making in, which means that I think that it is time for Cookie Destroyer to transition away from some of these wasps and into some eco, so then they can do even more wasps, or, hear me out, dragons. Love me some dragons.
Yes.
I want to see dragons. I want to see an entire fleet of dragons cleaning up. I don't care if they're cleaning up the kings. I don't care if they're cleaning up the peasants. Just get me 50 dragons to clean up the map.
As long as there's enough to block out the sun, we'll be happy.
That's so many dragons. Oh dear.
We've got tremors on this bottom left side, just raining down, manually targeting that fire and creeping it forward.
That's what you like. It's such a wildly effective strategy. I am surprised that each game a king doesn't get one tremor and like 16 tremors and just set them all to attacking each one of these bastions. That would deal with so many problems the kings seem to have. Does look like it. The top left is where most of the action is happening. The Jags pushing it behind yet another player, getting cleaned up by some bombers, but the bombers are falling into allied wind, and they're also not overly hitting those Jags. Very fast units and being very well controlled, just snaking them around back and forth, not letting them get not letting a lot of those bombs land.
And I find with things like that, once you can get your units into their base, their bombs damage their own stuff just as well as they damage yours.
Yes. Counterattack from the peasants is heading in on the bottom right side to try and deal with these Quakers. We've got a force of brutes that is going to be frontlining for some snipers. The sniper's going to deal a lot of damage over here, but unfortunately I think that those brutes are going to get cleaned up very quickly because they're running into almost triple their number in pounders. And this isn't going to be a running fight. This is going to be a good, solid engagement, which means that the brutes really do not stand much of a chance against the pounders. The sniper's reaping a toll.
With that many wreckages, trying to push becomes nearly impossible because you can't get through the unit that just died in front of you.
I do like using the wreckages sometimes to prevent something like that. While the snipers are trying to take a toll, it does look like the rest of the pounders are heading up a ramp right now. A few tigers at the top and some defensive turrets that are going to hold this at least for now. But this is going to start being a shift where that Quake is going to be able to inch forward and start attacking other positions. The Kings now really getting on the offense, which is something we didn't see in the last game. Pink on the right-hand side has got units that are actually just taking a lot of fire from the high ground, but they are allowing these tremors to do their jobs very nicely. This is Twig, who's been watching and commentating tonight, using a lot of the units that he's seen to be most effective. I'm surprised he's not in there with air, but it does look like the air has been a bit of a false flag, I guess you could say. Doing a decent amount, but not changing the game too significantly, just helping the Kings assault those ramps. But most of the damage now is being done by the ground forces. Demons have AA too. Look at those little missiles fly.
Things you learn.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Certainly starting to be the first time tonight that the Kings are pushing into one of these corner triangles. Very happy to see that. We might need to look at the bonuses, but this is a trial run right now, and it doesn't look like it is going too badly. It's about as balanced as we ever see these games, so pretty happy with that. But yes, we did see in chat quite a lot of questioning as to why we're not seeing we're not seeing very many of the peasants going air, though I suspect there will be a nice chunk of it coming as some of the corners get online. Twig losing a lot of those tremors to this one Pitbull with 17 kills, and I think that those were very expensive kills. The shield's doing a decent job of keeping these areas nice and healthy. Big bombing run is flying over a lot of AA, but that is a lot of bombers. Is going for the back of the map, and it does look like those bombs do get off. They get on the build power and the fusion, which means that is a player's economy essentially reset. That massive sacrifice, totally worth it in my opinion, because you can build those bombers again. Does look like potential attack on the right hand side with air, but unfortunately not going to head on up there. Just enough defenses, and we do have, oh, this is mass bombers coming in from the peasants. We'll see how far these go. There are 14 of them
to some extent.
They're too grouped up. You've got to spread them out, because all of those died to the tiny amount of splash damage that is available to basically every AA unit. On the bottom side, we do have some of my favorite bombers, the Hailstorms, that are starting their bombing runs into the peasants' bases. Pink, thank you for building those ones. They are some of the sickest looking air units in the game, excluding the dragon. Also nice and tanky, which is nice. If the devs want to put an even cooler unit in, A10 Warthog equivalents. Absolutely phenomenal looking aircraft. Does look like, though, with the top left corner being cleaned up, the might of the yellow player, Oratab, is heading on in to try and crush the right hand side, and they do not have the defenses to deal with it. While they're trying to deal with that, red is sending another large bombing wave in. Where is it heading? It is heading over a lot of AA, but it has passed most of it and is now finding eco positions to bomb. Is going for that conversion, I think. Only a couple of, in fact, no bombs drop. As I say that, the critical bombs did drop Very nicely done. I thought that was going to be a failure of a air attack, but it has managed to push its way in nicely. Bottom side, we do
Wasn't a
have
whole lot of-
bombers trying to take out other bombers, but the red is managing to deal with huge amounts of... Sorry, pink manages to do a huge amount of eco damage. We do know Twig loves his air transitions. And if he can't push in with tremors, I guess he'll push in with air. This is looking to be
He's still only
quite...
got T1 air though, which is surprising to me.
T1 air is fine, it's cheap, it does the job, and if each aircraft is only going to take a couple of shots from mass AA, then that's all you've got to do. Hailstorm's doing a nice good chunk of damage. The King's just not able... Sorry, the Peasants just not able to get their air defenses in order. They focused too heavily on ground defenses and have allowed way too much of this air to slip on through. Even after seeing the devastation that happened in that top left corner, we still didn't see a whole bunch of front line AA put up. Only a handful of flaks now, and yes, they have taken out the air, but we're a little bit too late as all the salamanders are starting to push in. Salamander, a great little amphibious unit, great for pushing through all of the ocean that we have in this map. Oh, so they're actually just a good unit. Just teasing Twig a little bit. Top right hand side has mostly fallen now to the might of the yellow player and the frontlining power of the brown player.
Oh, I was gonna say Cookie's starting his dragon build, but it looks like it's been going for a little while now.
Oh,
It's
Cookie,
on
I
its
love
march
you.
into the bottom right corner.
I said I wanted to see 50 dragons, and there are 50 dragons. What an amazing... Someone end that vote. End that vote now. Do not take this away from me. Thank you very much. Vote cancelled. I want to see this happen. Dragons are just such a great unit. The idea of an air-mounted flamethrower, whoever came up with that, just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. It's just such a... like, seriously, I would never consider an air-mounted flamethrower. It's a very...
But it's
very,
so satisfying.
it's so satisfying. Not to mention they called it a dragon, and who doesn't like dragons? These units now massively spreading out to blot out the sky. They're going to get so much damage as they rake across everything, and just not enough AA around to deal with this.
Yeah, I think the 75 was probably a little over-tuned for this.
I think, it was
But-
a little overtuned, but we also haven't run it with air, so...
Yeah, there's always a few rounds of testing to get it dialed in before it runs smoothly. I
But
think if we
very-
were to run it at the 45-50 with air, it might be...
Might be more manageable.
even.
Anyway, we'll probably continue to run it without air and then throw in the occasional and see if it works with, say, a plus 60 instead of a plus 75 or a plus 55 instead of a plus 75. We were expecting the peasants to go much more heavily into air, though. I don't think that there was a single air threat that... actually, there was one air threat of 4 bombers that attacked the King's base, but that was about it. Everything... Oh, actually, there was the gunships that grouped up at the 10-minute mark, but it's very hard to
Yeah, if
judge
they
off
hadn't
just
been
a
grouped to
single
die
gun.
to this. More balance than we were expecting is the overall outcome.
Kings detonating a bunch of their eco in at the middle of the map, knowing it's over. Just going to wait for that surrender vote to come on through. Well played by the Kings. Definitely going to need to look at reducing that bonus just a little bit, but we will see how it all goes if we do it again. Does look like the peasants have managed to get 230 dragons into the middle of the map. And they are going to start pushing on through. Alright, that is the end of that one. Let's have a quick look at the graphs, mostly to see what the Kings did. The thing that I will be most interested in, if we look at that... Actually, I was expecting Cookie Destroyer's line to be much higher than it was because of those wasp attacks, but it's surprising how low that one was. It was actually the players that attacked with ground that did the most damage, which surprises me, but well done to them. As you can see, the economy was just too far in the King's favor for this one, and that's our fault for not quite balancing this one just right. We'll give it a go another time with better balance. Twig, you were actually in the game. How do you think it went?
Yeah, that 75 was too much.
Yeah.
That 65 probably would have been a bit close to what we needed, I reckon.
One of the things that I am concerned with, the Kings didn't really face an air threat throughout the entire game.
Yeah, I was surprised that we weren't rushed. I personally didn't have much anti-air up, and I probably would have fallen quite easily.
You went a very standard build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had Eradicators up on one side, but I used the same constructor to build them all, so they hadn't quite been put up on the other side. I did have flak though. Flak trucks were what I was relying on, which do work, as we've all seen.
Yes. Anyway,
we're doing one more, gents.
Fun.
One final game.
I think that's about as far as we can take it with this one. Will run us well past midnight, I reckon.
Okay. Yeah, Nightmare was asking in game. Unfortunately, you couldn't see that one, so apologies, people, if I got your hopes up. Just might not be cast, but we will just run. I'll stick around to run one last one. And we can maybe, if you need to go pray, you can, what's it called? Raid across, and then I'll on-raid onto another streamer after that.
No worries. If the mods are listening into this one, if they can set up that raid, that would be fantastic. Sounds like Twig is going to run one more game, and then after that, we'll close it down, but the stream for this one is going to terminate at the moment. So thanks everyone for joining in on this one. Well, I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed our little experiment with air. And if you did enjoy our content, feel free to jump onto our YouTube or Twitch. We are AllReasonNoLogic, and we do a lot of King of the Hill content, as well as try to get ourselves and try to do some content about improving our competitive gameplay. Hopefully we'll catch you there. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
All right, we'll set one last one.
Beyond All Reason fans, welcome to King of the Hill by AllReasonNoLogic. Experience 2 or more teams facing off in epic scale warfare, where the Horde gang up on the Kings of the Hill. Kings start off with an economic bonus. They do their best to defend an onslaught after a no-rush timer expires. Test out your micro and defend against multiple players in variations of this game mode. Or be part of the masses. Team up with your allies to topple the throne in a glorious victory. AllReasonNoLogic, hosting King of the Hill lobbies, most Sundays. Join our Discord to be part of the action. See you in game, Commanders. Beyond All Reason fans, welcome to King of the Hill by AllReasonNoLogic. Experience 2 or more teams facing off in epic scale warfare, where the Horde gang up on the Kings of the Hill. Kings start off with an economic bonus. They do their best to defend an onslaught after a no-rush timer expires. Test out your